Why is Brazil so cool and trendy right now? And this is quite a recent trend, where foreigners from around the world think that Brazil is great and everyone wants to go there and visit. Because I remember like 10 years ago talking to friends and family from Sweden, the UK and the US about Brazil, and most of them weren't that interested really about my life there or what Brazil was like. And most of them knew very little about Brazil, and they were just familiar with football, carnival, Rio de Janeiro, and the rainforest. And that was about it. But now when I travel overseas and talk to people, and I say that I live in Brazil, everyone becomes really interested, and everyone starts asking me lots of questions about what life is like in Brazil, and many want to come over and stay in my place for a few weeks, so they can travel around Brazil and get to know Brazil. And it's not just me noticing this trend. So last year in 2025, there was a record number of tourists that came to Brazil, so over 9 million tourists, which was up 37% compared to the year before. And also if you look at the number of search queries for Brazil on Google Trends, and you can see that that's also up over the last couple of years, especially in 2025, you can see a massive peak. So I thought I'd make a video and investigate why foreigners around the world suddenly are so interested in Brazil. And the first reason why so many foreigners are interested in Brazil right now is because of social media. So you've got lots of celebrities and artists visiting Brazil and sharing their experiences in Brazil with their fans on Instagram and TikTok. So for example, Dua Lipa, she did some shows in Brazil last year, but she didn't just do her shows in Brazil and then leave straight away. No, she stayed in Brazil, did some sightseeing, and shared it all with her 90 million followers on Instagram. And also last year, Lady Gaga had a massive concert at Copacabana Beach in Rio de Janeiro, and around 2.5 million people came to watch that show, which was the highest attended concert by a female artist in history. And that also blew up on social media, everyone was talking about it. And you had many other celebrities as well, Madonna, Bad Bunny did some concerts recently, and even royalties at the Prince of Wales visited Brazil last year as well for an event. And so all these celebrities and artists visiting Brazil is great publicity for Brazil, but it's also been a big boom in foreign influencers, TikTokers, YouTubers coming to Brazil, doing videos about their trips to Brazil, and they show the touristy parts, but also many venture away from the touristy areas into other areas in the countryside, showing other parts of Brazil which foreigners aren't aware of, and that's also attracted a lot of attention overseas. So like I said before, a lot of foreigners, they have a very limited understanding of Brazil. They just think of Brazil having nice beaches and the rainforest, but then when they see that, no, Brazil is a lot more than those two things, and they see the mountain areas or the serras in Rio Grande do Sul, Santa Catarina, and how that can get cold in winter, even snow, and then how big some of the cities are, which can be bigger than entire countries in Europe, and also the favelas and the challenges for the people who live there. But also the social media isn't just showing new places which people aren't familiar with in Brazil, it's also showing the culture, the people, the energy of Brazil, which can be very different to foreign countries. And one thing I hear a lot of from foreigners is that they say that the energy in Brazil is a lot happier, friendlier, and authentic compared to other countries. I mean, it's true, some countries around the world, they can be pretty fake and quite aggressive at times, especially against foreigners, and that includes Sweden. And yeah, a lot of foreigners react to Brazil being the opposite, having a lot more positive energy, and yeah, that has also driven the social media interest in Brazil. And then the second reason why Brazil has become so popular recently is because traditional media is talking about Brazil a lot more. So in the past, foreign news on TV and newspapers and so on would only talk about Brazil when there's carnival, when Brazil is playing in the World Cup and doing well, and maybe if there was like a big shootout in a favela or something. And those are the only times I remember Brazil being mentioned in the news. But now they're talking a lot more about Brazil, and this includes everything from Brazilian movies. So you've got the movie I'm Still Here, Ainda Estou Aqui, which won an Oscar last year, and the foreign media talked a lot about that. And then you have another Brazilian movie called The Secret Agent, which came out recently, and some are talking about whether that will win an Oscar this year. And also in terms of sport, foreign media is talking a lot more about Brazil, because in the past it would just be in the World Cup they would talk about Brazil, but now they're talking about Brazil even in the Winter Olympics. So for example, when I watched the opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics a few weeks ago, and the two things that the foreign media talked most about was the booing of the American Vice President J.D. Vance, and then the second thing was the Brazilian team coming out dancing and with their colourful coats. And then when one of the Brazilian skiers won Olympic gold, again, that was a big thing that a lot of the foreign media talked about. But then there are lots of other things as well. So recently in the UK newspapers, they're talking about how the UK government wants to study the Brazilian health system called SUS to see what they can learn and copy to try and improve the UK health system called the NHS. So the two countries are working together on this. And yeah, that was quite a big story as well. So yeah, Brazil is definitely in the news a lot more overseas than it used to be, which again is helping to create more interest in the country. Okay, and then the third reason why foreigners love Brazil right now is because of the music. So in the past, if you asked foreigners what they knew about Brazilian music, most of them wouldn't be able to say anything. Some who are a bit more cultural might mention bossa nova or samba, but that would basically be it. But now Brazilian music has exploded onto the world stage, and a big part of that is due to Brazilian funk. So this is kind of a high energy dance music blending various elements. You've got electronic music, you've got bass, and the lyrics are very focused on ostentation, kind of crime and sex and so on. It's a very unique sound and has become very popular. And one Brazilian artist became very famous recently is called MC Menor JP. And the song Menina de Vermelho exploded overseas, and you got celebrities dancing to it. And yeah, those are some cool dudes, that's for sure. And then you can't talk about Brazilian music without mentioning Anitta, and she's one of Brazil's most successful artists globally. And she's topped Spotify's global chart, and she's done songs with The Weeknd and other big international artists. And with all these Brazilian artists becoming successful overseas, again, that has increased the hype around Brazil. And then another reason for the interest in Brazil is due to its fashion. So if you walk around big cities in Europe, so London, Paris, in the US as well, New York and LA, you'll see people wearing clothes which have Brazil written on it, and they're bright yellow, green and blue, so the colours of the Brazilian flag. And also many wearing the Brazilian football shirt as well. And also Brazilian flip-flops, the big brand being Havaianas as well, is very popular. And this fashion trend from Brazil has been called Brazil Core. And it's basically wearing tropical beachwear with vibrant colours. And it's in part inspired by the fashion of Brazilian favelas. And a lot of celebrities have picked up on this trend and started dressing like this, which has made it cool. And as a result, lots of people are copying it. I mean, right now in the Northern Hemisphere, it's winter, so you won't see that much of it. But in summer, you'll definitely see it around Europe and in the US. And then another reason why Brazil is becoming so popular is because of affordability. So a lot of the usual holiday destinations, be that in Southern Europe, Asia, and the US, have become a lot more expensive recently. This is with prices of accommodation and eating out increasing a lot. And prices in Brazil have also been increasing, but because of the weakness of the Brazilian currency, for a lot of foreigners, Brazil is seen as relatively affordable. So if you look at the US dollar against the Brazilian real, so 25 years ago you get 1.8 Brazilian reais to $1 US, but now that's increased to 5.1 Brazilian reais to $1 US. So the Brazilian real has weakened significantly in US dollars, which means that foreigners coming to spend their dollars and euros here in Brazil come with a relatively strong position and see the prices as being pretty affordable. So we've just looked at a couple of hotel and Airbnb accommodations just to see what the prices are like. So I've just chosen Florianopolis, which has lots of nice beaches. If we go to the north of the island, you can see you've got lots here for 1,500 reais. So this price here is for 4 nights for 2 people. So let's just choose one here. So it's a large apartment, nice balcony here with views. And this is 2,000 reais for 4 nights, which is $390 for 4 nights, which is just under $100 per night. If you look at hotels, so I've chosen the same dates, Florianopolis, 2 adults, and here you've got hostels, which cost $60 for 4 nights, so $15 per night. But then if you go down and look at a bit more expensive, and you've got bed and breakfast places for $150 for 4 nights. And then you have bigger hotels. There's some nice beaches as well. And that is $230 for 4 nights. So you can see the prices of hotels and accommodation is significantly cheaper here than in the US and Europe. And it's not just the accommodation, it's the food as well, which I've mentioned many times. So you can go out and have a decent meal at a buffet restaurant here in Brazil and pay between 30 and 40 reais, which is between $6 and $8. And if you want to go to an even nicer restaurant, then you can spend around 100 reais, which is $20 for a really nice meal. And that will be a real challenge to spend so little in Europe and in the US, that's for sure. But saying that, one thing that is a bit more expensive are the flights to Brazil. Because there are still lots more tourists flying to Europe, Asia and the US. There's a lot more competition there between the airlines than it is to Brazil. So flights to Brazil aren't the cheapest. And usually when I fly from Brazil to Europe, I spend between $800 and $1,000 for a return trip, which can be more expensive than to other destinations. Okay, so that was me explaining why foreigners love Brazil right now. So definitely the social media, the news, the music, the fashion, and the affordability have all contributed significantly to foreigners becoming a lot more interested in Brazil. But it is worth noting that Brazil does have its problems in terms of crime. It's also not the easiest country to visit for a foreigner who isn't fluent in Portuguese as well. So what that means is that a lot of the tourists that come to Brazil, they are from other Latin American countries, so Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, and so on. And so tourist numbers from Europe and the US and the Northern Hemisphere is still pretty limited. And also comparing total visitor numbers for Brazil compared to other countries like Mexico. So Mexico gets 45 million tourists per year compared to the 9 that Brazil gets. Then Thailand gets 39 million tourists. So you can see, even though there's a lot of interest in Brazil, the international tourism numbers for Brazil are still significantly lower than other countries. So I hope you like this video. Please leave a like, subscribe. If you've got any comments or anything, leave in the comment section below. So thanks for watching. Until next time.